hear background noise. That's what I'm asking. What's up, gents? It's your boy Falcon Black back again with another live stream in which I call Self Refinement Sundays. Today, I just want to speak about a topic that I guess has always been lingering on my mind. And I also want to introduce another content creator from the UK to my channel and really speak about this subject with him. But first of all, I just want to do a quick sound check. If anyone's in the chat right now, I can't see YouTube at the minute. Can you just press 1 if my sound is good? Let me know if my sound is good, please. I do not anticipate there to be many people in the chat, but so be it. I know my boy White Matters is in the back. I'm just wondering if he can hear me too in the back chat and if the volume's good. Perfect. White Matters can hear me. So I just want to start with a little intro. Firstly, I want to apologize for last week. This live stream was supposed to come on last week, but I had technical issues with my computer, replaced it, and got a new one. Now StreamYard is working fine. And speaking of technicalities, I'm using a new mic. And for this new mic, I really want to big up the people who donated in my last live stream with Sole Provider Speaks, talking about video games and its importance. And I want to shout out to Ike, White Matters, Red Sings the Blues for their donations last time. And that motivated me to up my game a bit, get a new mic. I got this new Rode wireless mic, which, new tech inspires me to do new videos. So, this is how I give back when you choose to donate. So I really thank you to all of you, even just viewing, all of you getting the likes up, contributing with your comments. All of you play a part. So I appreciate that. And also, I was supposed to be on camera. I just heard my camera just now, but it's having a slight malfunction. But that's okay because the person who I'm going to bring on doesn't come on the screen. So I think for the equilibrium, it will make sense to also be off cam as well. And yeah, and I also kind of want to apologize for, I guess, my slump in videos. I've been quite busy. That's not really an excuse. And I'm going to take my finger out pretty soon, especially with all the new tech and all the new ideas that I have to be more consistent with my message. And that's obviously the message of self-refinement, aka self-improvement, how we can always improve, whether that's mentally, physically, spiritually, even. So you see and notice that most of my videos are usually tailored around working out or tailored around martial arts, as I am a practitioner and competitor within Taekwondo, for example. So I'm trying to bring that out in the vein of self-improvement, so, to basically share the goodness that martial arts, physical activity has done to me, I see people in the chat. Let me big you up quickly. The Skittles man, good to see you. Says, what's up? Hear you well. Thank you very much for the sound check. King Henry, what's up? Good to see you. Says, yo, how's it going, Falcon Black? I'm doing very good, man. This has been the hottest weather so far in London, right? It's been gone up to 30 degrees. So I just came back from barbecue with some friends. What else did I do? I actually played a bit of tennis. Played a bit of outdoor tennis. Watched the England game. Oh yeah, Euro 2020. So England beat Croatia 1-0. So generally had a good day, man. I hope you've been well. Vincent Alakija, good to see you, man. So the British guys are in here heavy, it seems. Good to see you. KB Jones the second, good to see you, man. Evening to you. And then we have the classic, the legendary one and only Aaron B. That's Mr. What are your phrases, man? Mr. Damn, son. Yeah, that's the one. But good to see you all in here. So really, I just want to give you a quick intro on the idea of the video. Again, big up to everyone. Again, big up to all the people who donated in the last stream. So I just want to say one thing first of all, which I don't think I've been clear about. And, I just need to make it known. Like I don't expressively deem my channel as a quote unquote black male only channel. And I do that with a purpose because I find that when we start doing that, especially in this space, a lot of it becomes we go into this victim mindset. A lot of the talking points become us versus them. A lot of us in that state fail to realize our issues, the problems that we have. And we substitute that with talking about racism. Talking about how certain ethnic groups are doing this to us or have done this to us as a group, and we are at the bottom because of them. I really don't believe in that, man. And, I understand some people have the mindset that, oh, if you think like that, you're a raccoon, you are some sort of self-hating individual. Hey, call me that if that's what you think. But for me, as a black man growing up in the UK, what has brought me through to relative success has been my own hard work. It has been my drive and desire. It has been my planning. It has been my motivation and inspiration. I haven't waited or relied on some handout. I don't want pity, and I don't feel anyone is restricting me from growth in this country, and that's real talk. And I understand, of course, there is institutional racism. There are institutions that are unknowingly or knowingly restricting black people from entering, and that could be even just based on your name. I understand that, but all I can do is control the controllables. I can only manage what I do. And this is why my channel has evolved into what I call self-refinement, self-improvement, because all you can manage are the controllables. All you can deal with is what you choose to do. And so, yeah, I hate the victim mentality. That victim mindset I don't agree with. And I think why it matters, who I'm going to bring on in a bit, I think he leans on the same thought pattern. But, I'm happy to hear his opinions on stuff. And this is the aim of this live stream, really, is to have a casual dialogue, open dialogue, and to share opinions and thoughts. I hate the self-pity, and I only want to tackle the truth, the true stuff, the stuff that we can control. I'm too old to be blaming other people for my failure, especially when we have clear issues that we need to deal with as a community. There is no time or there is no place to lay blame on other groups anymore. You know what I mean? But also, there is, I guess, perhaps a more logical reason as well why I don't always do that. It's because in terms of population, as a black British content creator, us being 3.7% in the UK, if you create a quote unquote business and you limit it to just 3.68% of the demographic of the population, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. It doesn't make sense. You're limited in your business to a very small minority, and you just really marginalize and stunt your growth. So I mean, as a black Brit, I feel that I'm quite different from a black American, for example, because they have a higher amount of people who can work with them and who can really boost their business or whatever it is they're doing. So we need to also be able to draw out the differences between the Black American and the Black Brit, because often as Black Brits, you know, as the sort of second in chain command when it comes to, I guess, politics with the US, we often just kind of diluted within ADOS, you know. And obviously, of course, I have mad respect for ADOS and, you know, what they do and their influence in the world, and, you know, really their influence, you know, their influence on all Black people across the world and all people in general, you know, from their history, which is so famous, so popular, a popular, you know, almost like a rags to riches kind of story, if we can put it like that, you know. So mad respect to ADOS, but I think that I need to do a better job in highlighting Black British issues and White Matters, who I'm going to bring on. He specializes in Black British issues, and this is why I really like his channel. You know, he's trying to focus, from what I see, on British issues, which, of course, given the numbers, it won't always be a high amount of viewers, obviously, because it's not. This is an American platform, you know. But I want to do my part to support British content creators who want to go, in my opinion, the hard route. That is a hard route, you know. Talking about self-improvement, talking about betterment is typically a harder route when we all know what sells out here, you know. Talk about women dating, how you can get laid, feminism, and, you know, that sells, you know. So I want to you know, help as many people as I can who are speaking about real stuff and, you know, trying to keep it real. But anyway, with all that said, I've gone on a tantrum. I want to bring on White Matters. Let me just add him to the stream now. Before that, let me just, again, big up any new people coming in. I see we've got 14 viewers. Salute to you all. I appreciate it. If you can hit the like button, please. Again, I'm usually on camera, but I'm having some connection issues, which is fine, because my co-host, so to speak, is off camera too. So, you know, that can balance things out, you know. So let me just put up a few messages, see what you're saying. We've got Vincent. Well said. You agree. I appreciate that. We've got the CMA. I've never seen you before, but salute to you. And King Harry, you like this topic? Salute to you. So I've got a few bullet points, some notes to go through, which I think will be very good to go through. So stick around. I'll be throwing out a few questions as I bring in White Matters. And so let me bring on White Matters. Let me add him to the stream. Salute to you, White Matters. Are you here? Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you, Falcon. Bless up to you, and hey everyone to the chat.
Hey, it's great to hear. I've always wanted to ask, man, what mic do you use? Because you come out crystal clear.
It's a Rode mic. It's to go with. We've also got like a Rodecaster Pro, but it's the Rode mic. So I heard that you have a wireless one. I was like, oh, there's a wireless one. So
yeah, because I think because of my formats of most of my videos, you know, I'm kind of active, so it only makes sense to have like a wireless thing. I used to have shotguns on my camera, and that just poked out. It's not, you know, the mobility is not great. So yeah, Rode. I'm hoping my quality is good.
Yeah, no, the Rode has been good. I started with a different mic, which was just like one of these, you know, USB type mics. But yeah, you can just tell in my older videos, you could tell the quality is just, it's night and day. So you you pay for what you get, and you can tell it's crazy. So yeah,
I think about 2-3 years ago, everyone's bigging up the Blue Yeti.
Yeah.
I've had a few of them, but I really can't hear any. Like it sounds basic, you know, like very thin, tinny. I didn't get the hype.
Yeah, luckily I stayed away from that. So yeah, I hit the road. I've not looked back since. I've stayed clear from the Blue Yeti. I thought, oh, I was getting that, but no, this fits my need. Plus with the Rodecaster Pro, it's perfect. It's like a whole soundboard system. I can get different user interfaces, and I can really mess about with it. So no, it's been perfect so far, man.
Perfect. So you know, like I said, I've always wanted to bring you up on the channel. I think at the beginning of this year, one of my aims was to also bring up, you know, relatively smaller channels from mine who are focusing on things that I deem are crucial, you know, self-improvement related topics, but also as you kind of specialize Black British topics, because they're very rare on YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've always wanted you somehow, some way, whether it's sharing a video or having you on a live stream to, you know, boost you up a bit, give you some of my subs, hopefully, you know. But I wanted to ask, like, what motivated you to come to YouTube, you know, and what would you say your channel's about in general?
Sure. So just first off, I just want to say big up to you, Falcon Black, because I've been in the background in these YouTube streets for quite a long time. So I've been seeing you around doing your thing. And I do say you don't get the props that you deserve, in my humble opinion, when it comes to the space, particularly as a UK content creator. They're the ones who seem to, you know, fly the flag. You go under the radar, man. And I just want to say big up to yourself, man. I consider you one of the oldest, if you like. So definitely big up to yourself. So I need to get that out of the way first, give my due respect.
I really appreciate that, man. I think, sorry, just to put, I think, to be honest, it's partly my content, because I started as a typical kind of MGTOW channel.
Yep.
Talking about kind of general stuff. I've changed format quite a bit. So originally I started on camera, and I think when you're on camera, you get a lot of traction very quickly, regardless of the topic. Then I went off camera to focus more on the content, rather than, you know, you're going to start thinking about things like lighting and camera. So I kind of took the lazy route. And then I went away from the typical MGTOW talking points, and I focus on what I truly believe, which is the answer, the key, quote unquote, self-refinement. So I understand that, I guess, for some people, you know, you might have had some hardcore RP people come in and they came for a certain thing, a certain talking point. So I get, like, I guess for some viewers, it could be hard to kind of pin down what Falcon Black is. So, you know, I understand what you're saying, but I think I need to also put in the work and kind of underline my message as well. So it motivates me really to just do a better job at the end, you know?
No. And to be fair, what you just said there is perfectly kind of sums up my channel in regards to the core of my channel, what I believe and who I am as a person is. I'm very concerned when it comes to us as a group of people, being the Black community, and particularly when we talk about from a UK perspective, there's always been a gap there for me, which I've seen that we don't, a lot of us, as you said in the beginning monologue, that we seem to glean towards an American perspective, which some things can be translated, but there are things which we don't talk about, which are unique to us, which we need to really talk about. And that's kind of where my channel comes into place. And I talk about, basically, this is why it matters to me, because I care about the community. I want to see it grow. I don't want to see it die off and perish, or just become, you know, a chapter in a story way back when in the UK culture. Because at the moment, based on numbers and statistics, and that's also another driving force of what I love to do. I love to bring forth truth via statistics. A lot of times we have commentary, we have conjecture, we have a lot of talking points, which for me are just regurgitated from like Chinese whispers. But I like to get to the core of it, which is based on what does the stats say, what does the facts say, and then through that, my message comes across in regards to how we are doing as a people. So my focus has always been how we as a group of people are doing, and ultimately self-improve, because ultimately the whole topic's about where are we failing, how we can improve, how we can improve. So that's the core of my message, and that's what my channel is all about.
If you don't mind me asking, where in the UK were you born and raised in?
You know what? I wanted to.
Or is it private? Private?
Where did you think I was from? Let me.
You sound northern.
What does that mean? All right. What does that mean? Go on in the chat saying I let people know this.
I say Leeds, but what does the chat think? Where does my boy White Matters come from?
I don't know. And the thing is, I want to know: can Americans tell the difference between our accents? Can the Americans tell that I sound different than like Falcon Black? Or like
any Americans in the chat? Can you hear the difference between me and White Matters?
You know, you something to say ask and barf. And I'm like, no, we say ask. You guys sound posh to us, man. You guys really sound posh. So I mean, man. Birmingham. Oh, okay. Wrong side of the Midlands. Wrong side of the Midlands. So I was born and raised in Nottingham. So,
Nottingham. Okay, Nottingham.
That's the Midlands, pure Midlands.
There's a newish kind of grime. Who's that? Ireland.
Island. I was like, bruh, if only you knew. But no. Yeah, I get that a lot from like Londoners, man. They do it all the time, man. It's like you guys don't know accents that much when it comes to the UK. I think you guys think it all sounds the same, but it's if you hear a typical Brummie, a typical mank, you sounds nothing like the same. But that's just me anyway.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah, hey, but good. So you're saying that you were in the streets of YouTube for quite a bit. So you were viewing for a long time, I imagine, before you started the channel. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I was like a normal almost follower before I sort of made content. And again, I saw what I wanted to. You know, when you're a follower, you kind of want your content creators to do things that you want to do.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, why not I be that, that space? Why not I be the gap in the market which no one seems to really shout out for? Because I do notice that there is a need for a space for us as UK people to come together and talk about our issues. So I think that's something that gets missed. And I do hear the talking point about the numbers, but for me, I don't see it that way, because I look at bigger UK content creators who aren't in the space. They're in the whole wider space, and they get so many views talking about just regular issues, which from their perspective, from the UK. So I always think it's just about product placement, how we market ourselves, and the people will come, because you'll be surprised about how many people actually are interested to hear about things which may not be from their ends. So you are surprised, and how people really, really do glean to certain messages, because a lot of messages are universal, to be fair, when it comes to a lot of
exactly. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, but I think the problem is, especially in this genre, perhaps, or where we end up for some reason with a larger American audience. So it's like, well, in my case anyway. I think for me, being in the so-called YouTube streets before I made a channel, I was first more engaged with people like O'Shea Duke Jackson. Salute to him.
Yep.
I used to populate channel bit, moderate for his channel, and then from then on relate to other channels. So I guess for me, I've had a strong American viewership. But of course, it's no excuse. Product placement, repetitive as in consistent content, and it will surely hit. And I think that's what I said to you in a comment sometime. I said to you, just keep it going, and you're just gonna hit the algorithm, and you're gonna shoot up. Because I really don't want content creators like you to lose hope. You're probably getting 100, 200 views, and I really feel, just as you said, as long as you have the drive to keep going, you just keep doing your thing, and it will grow. You know what I mean?
No, honestly, I do appreciate the encouragement, because it's some. I do like that. I do like my followers. So big up to all my people who ride with me. So I do sometimes I do like the smaller engagements, because it can be a bit more calmer, and then true. Yeah. I think sometimes the what I've seen with a lot of bigger content creators is, unfortunately, like most things, the message gets diluted, and it more becomes about chasing the numbers as necessarily opposed to the content in terms of its pure authenticity. So a lot of times I see content creators, I understand why, let's be honest, they change up or they lose the essence of who they are in order to appease the wider crowd. And I get it, but sometimes having a bit of a smaller audience like mine, the content is the content. The content is king right now. So that's how I see it. But
to be honest, that's how I kind of feel. Like I've never really been chasing subs like that. Although as a YouTuber, I know that's the thing I need to do. So I guess in the end, everyone comes on for different reasons. I think with my reasoning for starting the channel, it was really, I think, more so to do with mental health. Being in a period of time point where I think I was a bit more isolated, and I just really needed to have a voice that also resonated with other people in the same situation. There are people that come to YouTube with that from that sort of path, and then there's others who come to YouTube solely as as to make profit, business, get the numbers up, subs, and all these targets. So I think for me, somewhere in the middle. In order to stay authentic, I don't want to be at I would never want to be in the point where you have to tailor your message to suit a certain audience, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's something that I've kind of made a point of that. I didn't care if I lost subs, the typical kind of RP raged sub who blames everything on the other gender, for example, because I think that is just a foggy, clouded way of thinking. It's not balanced. You're not reflecting on yourself and where you fall in, and your downfall, if that makes sense.
It does, and that actually leads perfectly to the topic, because
Hmm.
the question is, are black men in the UK motivated to succeed? And for the most part, the answer is no, purely because there's too many inbuilt excuses that we have, particularly as men, to be able to say, oh, well, if we didn't make it, it's because of maybe racism, structural white supremacy, critical race theory, particularly over the last sort of 12 to 18 months with everything that's been going on. There's almost like a ready-made excuse if we don't hit the heights or hit the places that we want to in life, to almost say we don't take self accountability, we don't take responsibility, there's no introspection, or at least not enough. Whereas once you remove that whole ideology of, you know, the white man's holding me down on every single thing. Again, this is not to say that racism does not exist. Of course it does. This is not to say that certain institutions in the past have not discriminated. Of course they have. There's been documents and reports on this. But in the main, right now in 2021, most of the things that we can achieve if we just get away from that whole excuses, get away from that blame game. Because once we do that, then the only thing that we can look at is, well, we're the problem. And that's what happens a lot of times in the red pill space. A lot of times there's so many excuses I've always heard from guys, feminism. And it's so funny how they can go into so much details about everything. I'm thinking to myself, so at what point, how many excuses did they go down before they actually say, do you know what, maybe it was you who was the problem? And it's crazy, isn't it? But that's what people want to hear. People want to hear that it's not their fault. People want to hear that it's somebody else to blame, because it softens the fact that maybe you're just the problem. It softens the blow, and that's what it is. Well, we have a situation now where we can't tell people, it seems, that, you know, you're the problem, you need to fix up, you need to look sharp, you need to do this. So a lot of times it's down to, of course I'm generalizing, it's not all for definite, just before anyone gets crazy with it. One of the biggest things is that excuses, that inbuilt excuses that allow people to sort of be comfortable in mediocrity. It's just crazy.
So saying that, a nice leeway into the topic, what would you say, generally speaking, now is the biggest issue that Black Brits generally face today? You know, what are our biggest problems holding us back from the quote unquote success? You know, whether that might be economic success or personal health, you know, mentality. What are a few things, or the main thing that is holding us back? What would you say that is, as Black Brits?
So the main thing that all groups are judged by is the economics. So that's judged in different sectors, from your net financial wealth, your property wealth, your pension wealth, your physical wealth. All these things are kind of form part of the economics in life, which, let's be honest, most groups are judged by their economics, which leads into power sort of issues as well. But mostly, let's talk it from an economics, financial standpoint. Our problem is, I believe, is we aren't focused enough in the areas which will give us that kind of power. I think we as a group of people, I mean, this is so stereotypical, but we would like to be more of a probably a grime artist, a rapper, drill rapper, or even like a YouTuber. There's too many things which we would like to focus in on, which, again, if you make it, great, but that's such a rare anomaly to make it. And even with these industries, you only make it for a season. A lot of these people here are here for a season, then they're gone. Especially when it comes to that content creation, a lot of times it's just you're here for a minute, and then the next minute another person comes up, and then you're gone, and you're still trying to chase it. But a lot of the foundations of which a lot of other groups focus on, we don't, which is like education. It sounds so boring when I say it, but a lot of things when it comes to this starts with the basics, which are at educational status. And when I looked at the numbers and how we perform when it comes to the top against other groups, we are behind. And again, you could call it down. I think a lot of it's down to focus.
Okay, so I pretty much agree with that, but I think now at this point, when we talk about Black Brits, we now have to kind of segregate the Black British person based on, I guess, whether he's originally from Africa or originally from the Caribbean. So just feel free not to answer this question, but are your parents originally from the Caribbean or Africa?
Caribbean.
Okay.
So my heritage is West Indian.
Right. So my heritage is of Nigerian heritage.
Right.
So I think immediately when you say not focus on education, it kind of rings a bell in my head, because with Nigerians, especially with my own father, for example, it's been, oh, education, you know, you must get a degree, you know, you must become something that's within STEM. You know, we're not dealing with any joke I'm sorry to say, guys, but any joke, degrees and stuff like that. But are you saying that this mentality is not really in the Caribbean side? Is that what you're saying?
I mean,
like the push to go to uni, get a degree type of mentality.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to say something on what you said there, because I hear that trope a lot about Africans, and they're so focused on education. And I don't disagree with it. I hear it a lot. But do you want to look at the numbers when it comes to the groups, and it's split by Caribbeans and Africans? You don't the only group you really outperform are Caribbeans, but when it comes to other major groups, you don't really outperform them. I've realized, which is so interesting. But yes, in general, the stereotype for Caribbeans have never been the push for education. That's I'm not saying it doesn't exist in certain families. However, it's never been a push in Caribbean households for whatever reason. I don't know, but the stereotype for Caribbeans is kind of true. We don't perform well in education. Even when I went to my sister's graduation, the only names I heard of black were African names. I couldn't pronounce them. I was like, bro, they were all African names. So at least in terms of that side of things, getting degrees and going through it, yes, more Africans than Caribbeans tend to graduate and tend to go university and that kind of stuff.
And you know what? I don't even say that as if to snub my nose, because I go hard on Nigerians, man, because there's a lot of arrogance and there's a lot of perceived success. Like when some Black Americans talk about Nigerians going over there, they speak of them with such sort of high prestige. But to be honest, because I'm very intimate with the Nigerian culture, I know the mentality, which are a few things that I'm gonna go through later on. But there's a lot of emphasis on fast money. I think the negative stereotypes of Black people throughout the world exists within all groups of Black people, in my opinion. So when you say focus, generally speaking, in my humble opinion, and it might sound bad, but I think a lot of Black men in particularly are not focused. They don't have that frame of mind where they can delay gratification, where and that's partly because of the popular culture on screen, right? It's like, when we look at the music, even Afrobeat music, which in my opinion kind of came up a bit more innocent, rooted from like Fela Kuti, who was talking more about political stuff. But now it's the same as like American hip hop. It's chains, gold, flossing. I get this amount of women. I got this car. So I think, like, although that is a stereotype with like African parents, it's still not. It seems like it's still not really motivating Black British people of African heritage to succeed in that manner. Like, because as you say, the numbers it proves otherwise, and I would agree with that, even without saying the numbers, just knowing the Nigerian mentality.
No, absolutely. And one thing I've always realized, I don't know if it's a Western trait, but I've always realized after a few generations of you being in a certain, like, after certain generations, the British African will probably be more British than African. I guarantee if they go back to their home country in Africa, they won't see him as being, Nigerian or Ghanaian or, Ivorian or whatnot. But one thing I've realized is the culture is regressing, as you said, when you talked about Afrobeats. And I can't remember I was watching a song. It was a popular one as well. It was an Afrobeat song. And I just looked at it. I was like, I muted it, and you couldn't tell the difference between an Afrobeats and just a hip hop. It was just that crazy. And I was like, why is it that when we look at these things, it's a regression of the culture that we've taken on? It's not a case of a progressive. It's like, why is it that I want to regress by this all kind of BS? I never understand that. Well, I say I never understand it, but it's just a concept which, if you just look at it from the face of it, it's wild. You know what I mean? It's like, why are we trying to lower the standards and not raise the standard when it comes to these kind of things? Because the cultural footprint of, let's just say, Nigerians, even though hardworking and education is one of them, the other one is scam artists and Nigerian.
Oh, for real, absolutely. 419. You know what I mean? I'm a prince.
Yes,
absolutely.
And
this is why I'm not arrogant. I'm not. Nigerians have a reputation of, because we're the most populous in Africa, and I guess the most well known, very traveled. We have a reputation of being arrogant. Thinking we're the best. And the ironic thing about Nigeria is that I think just yesterday there's an ongoing dispute where people just really want to be independent. So now we've got West Nigerians, a certain ethnic group that want to be independent. We had the Biafran War back in whatever decade. And it's like, no, Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, is in shambles, and the culture is quite shambolic. But that leads me to the next question. Like, on the issue of culture, do you think generally, do we even have a culture that breeds success? You know, do you think we have a cultural issue? You know, is a systemic culture of failure? Do you think that's where we preside in as Black British?
I mean, and again, it's almost like it's getting worse. And the reason, yes, in answer to your question, and the reason why a lot of it is because, going back to my earlier point, there's ready-made excuses. I think if you have a culture which has ready-made excuses and it permeates across to whether it's a Caribbean perspective and it rolls across to the African perspective, because we intermingle with each other, and you know how things play off. But once you have a culture of excuses that, I didn't get the job because of my skin color, because if you look at the managers, the senior directors, we are the least represented in terms of like managers on the board for all these big companies, about 5%, whereas the next one is like at 9%. So there's almost double the representation than we are. And these are groups which have less percentage of the population in the UK than we do. So even the numbers thing, I hate that numbers crap, because I'm like, it's not about numbers, it's about strengths in numbers. But the culture is what determines that. So you are right. The culture that we have, it doesn't breed it, because a lot of times it's kind of easy to say, especially with our politicians, which says systemic racism is the issue. It's kind of easy to gloss around all the other things that we can do as a people to change the culture. When it comes to things such as, let's say, single mother rate, when it comes to crime rate in our communities, those kind of things, which it's not going to help a culture thrive, is it? So once you've got these ready-made excuses about, it's because they're poor, it's because, they've gone through something issues, as opposed to, hold on, you can take responsibility for these actions, but it breeds a culture which is negative. It doesn't breed success.
Yeah. And, at the beginning of this year, I was intent of doing a series basically going in on Nigerians. For me,
you don't like these Nigerians.
Hey, as a Nigerian myself, it's just like, again, because of that veil of arrogance, we are the number one Africans. It's like there is a lot of hidden negative things that are really holding Nigerians back. And I really wanted to make a series going in, like I said, like a culture that breeds corruption, a culture of fast money, materialism, pocket watching, looking at what the Joneses has and trying to compete with other people on the street. You know what I mean? So again, from my perspective, as someone that's going in, or I'm all about self-improvement. It's like that is a failure in terms of self-improvement, because that's a failure when it comes to self-control. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to be extravagant, trying to pocket watch, that is a sign of a lack of self-mastery, a lack of self-control. You can't, you see what the Joneses has, and then you want to try and up them, regardless of whether it's good for you, regardless of going into debt because you want this new Range Rover. So I think, yeah.
I was going to say, you said something, because it's peacocking, because especially nowadays, and I wanted to do some sort of video on this in regards to, people may look like they have a money, but truth be told, it's all financed. It's all on debts. So you're right. A lot of times you're getting phones on contracts. Everything's everything's financed on everything, where actually you don't own anything. So it may look like you have all these expensive items, but you're right. A lot of times it's just peacocking. So you're right. It's not. It's definitely not a good thing to be. Whereas other cultures, some of them, I think it's like the South Asians, they don't believe in debt. Especially if they're from if they're Muslims, they don't believe in actually anything on debt. They buy it straight out. So they may not look like they're, stunting as, they don't look like they're flossing, they're drippy. Yeah. But that's the point. They actually have more financial assets and wealth than we do, because it's all debt based.
Exactly. And when was it? Saturday, I was riding out my motorbike till around Bow, Stratford, East London, where a lot of British Asians are. And when you look at the typical middle-aged British Asian, they're dressed humbly, maybe in that Muslim attire, just one piece, doing there's no extravagance. Maybe the younger people now, but you know, they're obviously probably influenced by, you know, hip hop and stuff like that. But when you look at the middle-aged people, no extravagance, humble, meek. Maybe they're tending to their little corner shop, you know, pardon the stereotype, but you know what I mean? There is no sense of trying to one up people on the level that we do, if that makes sense, you know? And when I hear like British Asian music, again, talking about the culture part, it's like, it's not, you know, it's probably about love, you know, it's probably about quote unquote simping type stuff. But I think music lyrics on that is better than talking about killing your fellow man, you know, talking about ratchet stuff, self-destruction, basically. So it's like they've got the music. It's like when you look at black culture in general, it's like a culture that is just pretty much bred to fail. You know, we're being brainwashed. We're in our AirPods listening to violent, aggressive music, and then we're spending the rest of our time engaged in entertainment, effery, online, on TV. It's just day in, day out, a mentality, you know, based around garbage, pretty much, you know?
And the thing is, the reason why I'm saying that is because you ain't a real nigga. That's the problem, Falcon. You ain't a real nigga. You ain't real. You ain't.
Yeah, I'm a coon. I'm a coon. I know. I'm not. You know, I'm a square. I'm a square. Yeah,
no, exactly. Yeah. But no, you're 100% right. It's just like if you look at the lyrics and you just take a step back and you just like, wow. I mean, it's talk about destroying your own people, and music for a lot of black people is heavily influential. And I know people say in the chat, yeah, but you know, the typical consumers of this type of music aren't black people. The white people buy it, and it's like, well, you know, black people seem to use these things as an anthem. You know what I mean? When you have these entertainers do something, black people follow suit as if they're like brainwashed into these kind of things. And it's like, come on now, we're almost a sensible people. And when a rich famous person says something, it's like we all follow suit. Whereas the other groups, they're like, okay, we can put it down for now. We know that's stupid, that's foolishness. But for us, it seems to be it could be opposite. We take it as almost if it's like an anthem. It's like, what does that mean? How does that make any sense? How's that going to help the community? But just how it is, how we see things.
Yeah, for real. Now speaking about culture as well, speaking of O'Shea, big up to O'Shea. Like he was trying to do a British sort of Black British stream where we talk about British issues. And for some time, we were doing a stream with other UK content creators and trying to do what we're pretty much doing here. And one of my talking points back then, this was like 2018 or something like that, was the fact that perhaps, you know, it's just spitballing ideas, but perhaps the Black people in Britain need to bolster up the culture, meaning we need to have a stronger Black British identity, or really we won't really have a legacy to lead, you know. And I think when we kind of use Asians as an example in Britain, it's like they are second, third generation, and they are intent. I mean, you know, they could go back and forth to, you know, India or Bangladesh, but it's like they are intent to plant their roots here in the country with their, you know, maybe pharmacy, news agent, some sort of business, and grow on that. Whether from my perspective, we don't really do that, especially speaking of British Nigerians. It's like we want to quickly get money. And I guess to some degree, the idea is to escape and leave the country. Like, do you believe that we need to formulate a stronger Black British identity? Is that part of the success? Or are we kind of destined to kind of fizzle out, meaning we kind of merge with the dominant population, or we are destined to go back to our quote unquote mother countries? Like, what do you think on that?
Good question. I mean, personally, I think we should formulate a stronger British contingent. And I think one of the reasons why I think we don't is because of two reasons. Number one, I think because if we take Black Americans as an example, they've cultivated a group-like mentality, which I do admire. So they support each other. They for the most, they support each other. They come together. They hang around in their spaces. Whereas us as Brits, we're more divided because we have stupid crap. Like African versus Caribbean, and then within African you have different types of maybe tribes. That we don't have that sort of coming together yet. It's getting there with the generations, I believe, because we're getting better at it. But we don't have that sense of we need to come together. Even in spaces like YouTube, it's like it's amazing how many Brits I find just floating around. I'm telling you, there's so many things I've been seeing floating around, and it's like we will glean to the Americas, we'll glean to maybe Caribbean side, we'll glean to the African side, but we don't seem to want to glean to each other. So I think in order to do that, we need to be able to glean to each other so we can form that contingent. And a lot of it's because some are first generation, they've, especially like, I'll be honest with you, Africans seem to be a lot more Africanized than a Caribbean. Caribbeans don't seem to be as Caribbeanized as Africans. But anyway, regardless, it's just because we probably, our identity is not as strong. So I think to do that, we need to make sure that we almost come together more often, and then we can evolve our culture and make it strong. Otherwise, yeah, because right now I think we look a lot to other people like Begs, to other places where we copy off West Indian in terms of our lingo, our language. We copy Americans in some of our music. We copy some Africans in some of the Afro beats, I guess, infused. When there's a lot of things we do which are quite unique, which we don't praise enough and we don't stand on because we don't like it. But there are a lot of things we could do as Brits to really strengthen our culture and our own unique culture, which doesn't get talked about often enough. But we need to be united more often, which we're not, people.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that is a logical progression. I think that is part of the formula for success. You need to be stable. You need to have a foundation. You need to know what you're doing and where you're going. I think that's basic. But it's either, from what I gather, it's either people, and I guess I can understand it. I mean, I don't want to go back to the whole racism, blaming the quote unquote white man, but I can understand that there's a lot of black people, black men perhaps in particular, who just feel maybe invisible in the UK, or they just feel alienated. Maybe I don't know about Nottingham, but maybe further up north, people are just made to feel like you don't belong here. Maybe you're being stared at all the time, and you're being treated in a way that it almost makes you want to escape. I mean, do you think that's a point, or do you think that's just perhaps leaning on to the side of blaming?
No. I mean, and here's the thing: there's always, I'm gonna say this about racism. You are right, 100% right. There are places where I've visited where there's no black representation, and I don't know what it is, but for me, I can always tell if like a white person's never seen a black person before, because it's almost written on their face. Like, okay, what slick shit do you want to say to me now? I've had it before when I've gone to certain places. And what slick stuff you want to say, and what do you want to ask me? And sometimes we touch my hair and all this kind of other stuff. I'm like, oh my days. It's serious. It can be like that in certain places, in certain situations. So I've been on that. I've experienced that, and obviously, being where I'm from, there's a lot of black people here anyway. So I know white people are generally cool, and they know black people. They know black people. It's all good. But no, I understand definitely feeling alienated, and that's why people feel as if they don't belong here. Particularly, when you have early in the Windrush generation, you had the whole no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. You had the Teddy Boys, you had skinheads. You had all these things that were going on through up and down the country where black people couldn't rent flats. Black people, they had to set up their own churches. I almost think, funny enough, under a lot of if you like segregation or oppression is when we perform at our best, because we can come together without any. I think we need sometimes an excuse to come together. Funny enough, if we can blame someone, that seems to be the only time we're mostly together. It's so funny. Even though I hate it nowadays, at least, but it seems to be the way how we can come together. But no, I can definitely relate to that in regards to feeling isolated and feeling like you're alone and stuff. But one thing I want to talk about with racism, because Aaron B in the chat's been talking a lot about not being hired by whites, and one thing about racism, which another content creator mentioned, but I agreed with him. Racism, I don't have a problem with. I have a problem that we don't practice our own form of racism. So one of the things which Asian communities are very good for is whenever you go into an Asian community, you can tell from the outset, because they have a structure of a community that they set in place where they have their Asian shops, their Asian store, which they all patronize, they all go into, even though they have their own BS, even though they have their own problems. they have a structure and set in place where their communities, for the most part, they have order. Whereas when I go to certain communities where I know we reside in, I don't see that same structure where we hire our own people, or even if we don't hire our own people, it's still our own shops that we benefit from. To give an example, is Asians, a hair store. When it comes to female cosmetic products, when it comes to nail salon, there's certain things which I see. I'm like, why is it that we don't have those things in mass? Outside of your barbershops and your typical, like West Indian or African food stores, takeaways, you're like, there'll be a few odd shops here, like maybe a mechanic or a butcher, but it's like, or online shops. But for an Asian community, they seem to have it where they just like, we're gonna form our own, practice our own racism. I was to say, forget white people, forget anyone else. We're in this together. However they do it, we're in this together. So sometimes I think we need that mentality where we're in this together, but actually being it together, not just cry out to white people asking for their validation, because that's what we're doing right now. We're just crying out for validation from white people and pity.
And I think what you're describing is like a mentality of dominance and dominating.
Yeah.
And it's like I have a real irritation because it at some point it seems like the way Black people generally act are like kids. We act quite submissive on a sort of economic level where we don't seem to take responsibility or take control of our issues. And for me, that relates again to improvements, or laying blame on other people when we have clear issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. But that probably just stems from culture, right? It's like we, as kids, we need to be bred with a certain type of mentality to have those strong viewpoints, And
I think even whether you talk about African or Caribbean in the UK, I think all of us have this. How can I put it? We love white people so much where what we want to do is that we really care about how they view us, how they see us, what they think of us. We care about being in their spaces. We care that they hire us. We care too much about them.
Care too much, yeah.
In a way which I've been seeing again over the news, and there's been so many stories I've been covering where, and it's a pity where Black people have been hired because diversity and all this kind of other things, and it's just man, we really want to be in white people's spaces so much. We really want to be like the apple of their eye. I'm like, listen, I understand that you want to get somewhere in life and you don't want to be hindered by skin color. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just like, listen, I don't want to be pitted or by white people, or just be like, oh, here you go, here's the good token. I don't need that kind of stuff. I'm just like, we should be able to connect ourselves and do what we need to do to get where we want to get. Like Asians, they will go across up and down the UK and they'll set up their own communities and not give an absolute F. And white people, they move out. But Asians, man, they don't care, and they set up their wealth. They buy their houses. They make sure that they have everything on lock. Whereas a lot of us, we're based in the major areas. Most of it, people don't even like going too far up north. It's like, are there any Black people up too far north? Are there any Black people there? It's like, come on now, it's just too scared.
You made a video on that, right? I remember you made a video on that with hard stats that just really it almost broke my heart to see how miserable we're performing.
Yeah, home ownership, because home ownership. Most of us are based like in London and that area, so that's obviously clearly the most expensive region in the UK. So by house prices, I feel for you guys who live in London. You guys have to pay extraordinary prices, and even white people know we can't afford this. They moved out of London a long time ago, and they moved down to the home county like Essex and West Sussex and all them kind of places. And I'm like, Black people haven't clocked on yet, and they still fighting to stay in London. I'm like, why? Move. And Asians, their majority of them aren't based there, so they can build up their wealth by buying portfolio houses, and then they can go into the capital, and then they can ball out. It's just certain things I'm like, man, it's that funny cultural mentality, and this isn't just a Black people. This is just like a southerner thing where the massive regional divide in the UK between north and south, but just in general, us. There needs to be a strategy. I think there's not really much of a strategy that we follow. So it just is what it is.
Yeah. Before we continue, guys in the chat, I just want to ask, please, in supporting this conversation, this dialogue, this platform, can you hit the like button, please? And if you feel inclined to do so, feel free to super chat. Like I said in my earlier monologue, the super chats in my channel help to advance certain techniques in this case, mics, cameras, for example. Just try to support where possible, and appreciate our time being spent. But kind of continuing from that topic, you've heard of SYSBM, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
In the past,
funny lot.
Funny bunch. Yeah, I've had my kind of run-ins, but
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen with the infamous. I don't want to name drop on your channel, but yeah, I've seen you run-ins.
That was back in the day when I was kind of dealing with the effery stuff. I had to kind of, to be honest, when I involve myself in some of those topics, when I go back and review it, I feel embarrassed because it's like, I don't care to speak, it's kind of low level, low C type of talking points. But I remember there used to be a stat back in the day which kind of stated that Black British men had higher rates of interracial marriages. And you being the kind of stats man, is there any truth to that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I'll split the groups then to be fair and balanced here. So for Caribbeans, it's like 60%. So whereas for Africans, it's lower. So I think it's about 30%. Now that was the last, based on last census done in 2011. I want to say based on what I've seen anecdotally and what I've seen in the news, a lot more Africans now are dating interracially more than I would have thought credit. But yeah, it's in the range of like 60% in terms of dating out, and it's huge. So when people talk about, it's only 20%, that's a US statistic. From the UK, we've gone past that threshold of like DEFCON 1. It's criminal right now.
Damn, I just want to quickly shout out Triplet Dad +1. Thanks. Good to see you in the chat. Thanks a lot for the $5 super chat. It says great video, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you. And we've got a new consensus. We had a new 2021 one. I'm not sure if you did that. Yeah. So hopefully we get new stats soon. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been looking out for it to see what the updates, but based on usually when you split the statistics, the younger generations will date out more because it becomes more socially acceptable and people get together, and obviously the media has a massive impact on that. So I expect it to follow similar trends now, where again it will still reach new peaks. That's what I'm expecting. I could be wrong. I'm kind of wishing I'm wrong, if I be fair to you, but yeah. So
just to be clear, we're saying that 6% of Black Caribbean men are with non-Black women in terms of marriages.
60%. I think in total about 57, based on the numbers, about 57 to 60. Yeah.
Right. So I only really say that because obviously if we're talking about a stronger Black British culture, obviously that's gonna mean having marriages between Black people, obviously. So I'm quite a history buff when it comes to British history, and the truth is that in the Middle Ages we had not really a significant Black population, but there was a small little Black community, like Moorish people, back when there was more Black Africans in North Africa, for example, or Nubia, which is now in Sudan. That was a Christian nation. That would often kind of be in collaboration when it came to the what was that holy war between Christian and Muslims?
The Crusades, but that's something different.
Yeah, the Crusades. Yeah, as well, the Crusades. So they were very linked, like England and like Christian Africa. But what I realized is that those communities didn't persist. They didn't remain, and that's most likely because of marrying into the predominant demographic. So it's like, do you think it's kind of like the destiny of a Black Brit who represents like under 4% of the overall population to kind of go in that quote unquote SYSBM route, to kind of leave? We talk about Black men not feeling included or even wanted. We're getting stares. We're feeling awkward, feeling alienated. Would you say that is a solution, or are you more of a stick to the guns? Let's produce. We need to marry each other more, and we need to grow something here. Like, what's your mentality?
Absolutely, and because one thing I hate the most, and this is for me the highest form of hypocrisy. I hate when I hear men or women complain about racism, but I see them with a non-black partner on their arm. That's the height of hypocrisy. I don't even listen to people like that. Whenever I see them talk about how evil white people have been and how white people make me feel like we're at this, and yet I see you partnering up with one, married into their family. I'm like, oh, so hold on a second. Does that include your white wife or white man? Does that, you know what I mean? Does that include them? I really don't like that whole talking point, because for me that's a height of hypocrisy. But one thing I just want to say, because the SYSBM kind of is more for me of like a far right movement of dating out, because there's dating out just because you may find somebody attractive who's of another race, not because, whereas SYSBM, that's because let's be honest, they hate black women. They do it because they hate black women. They hate them to the core. They hate them to the very fiber of their being, of their bones. So there's a slight difference between SYSBM and just dating out. Just want to make sure make that distinction here, because you can date out and you not hate black women. You just happen to meet someone who is of another race. It is what it is. Whereas SYSBM is completely different. And no, I don't see it as a future. I think we need to, again, in my utopia, it will be to create strong black community. We need black families. There's no two ways about it.
Fair, indeed, true indeed. Let me just quickly big up Man for Man podcast for the £5 super chat. It's good to see the pound sign. He says, good conversation. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining and contributing. I want to kind of play devil's advocate, with what you just said about SYSBM. Okay, there is that extreme side that just has a real disdain for that demographic. But what about those that say, look, single motherhood is causing chaos. It's not allowing boys to become men and take charge and create the businesses that we need and be dominant and put in some sort of strategy and structure that a man is supposed to do. And they think like, okay, this group, I don't really want to name them explicitly, but this group is like the weaker link. And so not really because of a hatred, it's more because of a realization that what we want idealistically can't be built, and so they want to journey over to kind of another group or another country to grow. Like, is that not a legit side of that, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I will be fair and balanced. I do hear there's arguments, and it's not as if I completely just like don't understand in regards to, it may just be more palatable in order to build, because at the end of the day, you only have one life to live and you want to make sure that you are happy as well. So no, I totally do get that. I suppose what I would say to them is I find it interesting how they will push back on the reverse, in which is there's a certain group of men who don't know how to build. They don't build. They are basically not as productive as other groups. So what they do is that they are weak and they move out. Is that a fair representation?
Damn, son. I wouldn't argue with you there, man. I mean,
because truth be told, in the community, this is the honest to God truth. And I don't care, and whoever gets upset, because I know when it comes to like red pill spaces, men, they hate it. It's all the women's fault and whatever. But here's the truth: a community, the man and the woman reflects each other. If your woman's fucked up, you're fucked up. And it's always interesting when I hear this topic of when we always blame the women or the women blame the men. And I look at their own actions, I've realized you have absolutely no leg to stand on chatting whatever shit you're chatting. And it's always interesting how the ones who have the most fucked up situations are talking the loudest. I'm like, where'd that come from? So again, I remember
you made a video a few weeks back saying that, you want submission, but are you really ready to take on like leadership? To quote it. That is a deep topic, because this is why I eventually find myself speaking about self-improvement, because the culture of blaming women is weak to me. It's like you can only blame external things so long before you actually look at yourself and realize, damn, maybe I need to do this, maybe I need to build this up, maybe I need to enhance this. You know what I mean? I think once you have that that ability to self-reflect, you grow, and then you realize that what you thought were problems aren't really the issue. Do you know what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, you can't keep blaming another group for your problem. And now we've identified multiple groups that some black men seem to be blaming. We've identified white people in general, and then I guess we identify BWs. You know, so it seems like in this space, something that I want to be anti is that whole echo chamber, blaming others and never really taking real accountability. You know what I mean?
This is it, and that's why I did that video, because when I looked at the stats, I thought to myself, okay, then cool. Say, for example, women are who they're supposed to be. Say as if your woman is where she needs to be in life, or you where you are need to be in life. And that's why I did that video, to say, look, at the end of the day, here's what I do believe. I believe that you should get the respect. Respect is something, or say courtesy. Let's use the word courtesy, what should be given. And yet respect is always earned, I was told, not just offered. You have to earn someone's respect. But let's just be real here. I don't have any what's the word? I agree with people saying, submission, being agreeable, cooperative. I had no problems with that. No problems with that. But the problem is when we compare other women, black women, with other groups, their men outproduce us on average more than we do. So at least their group have a group of men who they can look at and say, do you know what? If I become more agreeable, more cooperative, I can get a higher caliber of men, as opposed to maybe what we can provide. And that's why I say we're kind of a reflection of each other, because there's a reason why certain groups have probably a better batch of women, is because they have a better batch of women to go after. Therefore, it's better for them because they're hypergamous, they're monkey branch, all that kind of other stuff. They have that ability to go from, say, peasant to the upper room, the upper chambers, the upper class. Whereas maybe for us, it's like, well, the highest you're going to get is a rapper, a football player, a Premier League footballer. Hey. All right. So what kind of woman's that going to be? So I always see it just as we're so linked, because if we're raised in the same environment, then we're both going to be products of each other. It's the same thing. When I look at the men, I'm like, well, that's how I see it. Again, not to say that you shouldn't be aiming for that, but that's what I see when I look at the numbers.
True indeed, man. Okay, so we spoke on culture, but I kind of want to move on to health in general. I realized you did a video based on, I think the title was called "The Real Reason 72% of Black People Won't Take the Jab" in relation to the coronavirus.
Yep.
And to be honest, I've been meaning to make a real impactful video on essentially anti-vaxxers, why black anti-vaxxers are just stupid as AF to me. I think it doesn't make sense, and I think it's conspiracy theories and it's fears on irrational situations, irrational things. And I think I remember seeing the video. Sorry, it's been a while, but I think you pretty much had the same talking points as I would have, and I think quote me if I'm wrong, you tend to agree that in general, we have, as black people in Britain, maybe across the globe, we generally have the poorest health, the poorest diet. Because we're coming out of poorer situations, we're going to get the lower level food, the worst cuts of meat, higher fat. We're leading in things like diabetes, lower lifespan. Because of all of this poor environment, we can't focus, ADHD. Yep. We can't learn. We can't even do the thing that will help us to get out of it. So it's like a death trap, So it's like,
I was going to say, that's one of the things why I really do like your channel, because health is one of the most underrated aspects of your life, which until it becomes serious, then it now becomes top priority. Because I had a conversation with my brother about this. It's like, because people feel fine, people think that they are fine, but it's because your body adapts to your bigger weight. It adapts to and obviously, if you drive, you take the bus or you take the train or the tram or whatever it is, your body adapts to really a situation that it shouldn't be in. Because when I look at the numbers, like 73.8% of us, that was when the last data was taken, in terms of black people, are classed as overweight. Now, I will say this, a lot of the BMI, I don't agree with it. I think a lot of it's culturally biased. I will agree with that. I will say that. But the levels I'm seeing when I just go out anecdotally, I see some men and women who, I'm sorry, they're not much more than 25. And I'm just like, how are you that big at that age? I see some people 15 and they're huge. just huge. And I'm just thinking to myself, health is one of the most important things above money, above wealth. It's one of the things which I guarantee every single human being on planet Earth, they will spend every last penny that they have to try and get themselves in better health if they, if they could do. So it's such a huge thing.
That is a real point, and really that was one of my motivators to make the stream, because it's like, I guess, and it's not really a stereotype, it's the truth. A lot of us come from poorer situations in terms of economics, so it's like we have this extreme mentality of get rich. What was 50 Cent saying? Get rich or die trying mentality. And that mentality often evades the softer stuff, the keeping in shape, the regime of going to a gym or going for a run or whatever, and all of those things, which is really what I'm trying to belay in my videos, as a martial artist, that this is really the key to not only changing the way you think, but also reaching levels of understanding that it's almost like an enlightening moment, So when I do things like fasting, for example, with all the benefits of basically, it's like from what I understand, it's like a recycling system at a cellular level, autophagy, something like that, autophagy, which it's basically making you less susceptible to certain diseases, and these are often diseases that the Black community are prone to, and being insulin resistant, aka diabetes. But it's like, as we seem to think that we have a culture bred for failure, but then it's almost like we also, health is a part of that. We don't prioritize the health part, the softer part, so to speak. Going to the gym, do you know what I mean? Eating right, eating healthy, So it's like
No, absolutely. It's one of those things where, and it goes down to a trope with Black people, laziness. I mean, it's this. I mean, a lot of your stuff. One of the things that you mentioned, but it's really true, is it requires discipline to do these things. Because even for me, when I go to the gym, the most hardest thing for me is really the diet aspect, because the diet is majority of your training. I mean, you can go to the gym all you like, but if your diet is poor, forget about it. You're not making any gains. It's just fruitless. So a lot of it is down to discipline, and unfortunately in this culture, because I'll be honest with you, I don't know where it is, but there's so many fast food joints, and there's so many chicken shops, there's so many different, you got Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat. It's so easy for you, without anything, just to get some chips, some fast food, fatty foods, and without even thinking about it, because it's just easy. I can't be bothered to cook. I have to prepare this. I have to worry about this. It's so easy, and it's a lot of it's down to our discipline and just outright laziness. And it definitely will make it harder if you have children and you're in a situation where, again, you haven't got the time, you working, you kid, you know what I mean? You just, especially like white kids. People think white people have it all easy, but I know white kids growing up and they would like go to Chippy all the time. I'm just like, that's not good for you. So, but it's just because the parents are too lazy. So they just give them some money and go down to Chippy, and that's their lunch or that's their dinner. But then what happens is they suffer from ADHD. They can't concentrate because they're eating too much starchy food. It impacts their health, their mental health, their aspects, and you age quicker. And you actually, your SMV, because your SMV value drops dramatically. And here's the thing, because let's keep it real now. Which, this space talks a lot about women, and that's another reason why we don't focus in the right area, because we talk about pussy. But let's be honest, that drops your SMV because you ain't got the cardio, you can't perform, you look like shit. That is a huge thing.
Hey, and that's another topic that I wanted to go on. I wanted to make a video on, but let me quickly just point out the super chat. Grown man business in the building. Salute to you. I've seen you around. He says #men first. I appreciate you for the $9.99 super chat. Thank you for supporting this conversation. And yeah, it's like everyone wants to talk about getting women, etc., and how to get women and how to be successful in dates and all of this talk around, I guess, dating and sex pretty much. But it's like you're not going to perform well in more ways than one if at the base level you have a poor diet. You know, like ED, for example, something that you know, I have. I'm kind of in support of a friend who produces Tonka Ali, which is basically an extract that aids testosterone. You know, I really want you guys in the chat to check it out. I usually post the link in the first comment. But it's like, I'm very aware of how bad health negatively affects testosterone. You know, and it's like it's like a moot talking point that we men don't really openly talk about. But you know, my understanding is that a lot of men, in general, in this case, are suffering because of this fact of having poor health. And I think it probably just affects black people, and in this case, black men even more. Because, you know, when we speak about COVID specifically, unfortunately, in this country at least, who was affected the most when it came to COVID and deaths? You know, unproportionately.
Our community, because we've got too many underlying health conditions. And that's the thing exactly, which, funny enough, I saw a documentary, and one of the things was, is racism the cause of why black people are dying at more proportionally than any other race? I'm like, oh, gosh. And truth be told, it's more to do with the health. Again, it's that excuses part. It's that, oh, it's racism. It's like it's a disease. You know what I mean? The reason why it affected us is not because of racism. It's because we don't set ourselves up in the right frame of reference health wise. So yeah.
Right. I just want to quickly answer Triplet Dad +1's question. He says, how do you convince people to get healthy though, especially when it involves work and getting uncomfortable? And my answer to that is, there is always a way, you know, because again, creating excuses, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I know you're asking a general question. The excuse is like the comfort for the undisciplined and the person who's lazy anyway. You know, it's like, we have 24 hours in a day that you can appoint at least 1 hour out of the 24 to do something pertaining to health and fitness. You know, there is really no excuse, you know. And it's like, how can a 9 to 5, for example, or any job, whatever shift, stop a person from prioritizing their health? I've never understood that.
Yeah, I'm like, confused a little bit by that question, because it's like, surely, I mean, what about for your children and for your own future? I mean, one of the things which I don't understand with health is, I mean, I've had this argument actually with somebody saying, what's the point? We all die anyway. And I'm like, well, true.
Yeah, but damn, man, that's like a kamikaze mentality, you know? It's like,
yeah, but one's going to die kind of, you know, really, really not be able to like walk. They're going to have diabetes, cancer, and it's going to be an awful end to their life. While the other group are going to, you know, at least have a situation where they could be able to walk and they'll be pretty much comfortable to be able to see, you know, run around with their grandchildren. You know what I mean? There's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, that's kind of what we're looking at when it comes to health and prioritizing. And there's been another reason to get healthy, and it's not just for you, but for your kids. So one of the things which I was looking at, I was watching a podcast, Joe Rogan, and one of the women on there was talking about, actually, do you know that you mutate your DNA every single time you eat or you do anything? Your DNA changes, you mutate in it. And
right, exactly.
It's kind of been proven where if you eat healthy and you have kids, your kids will get a healthy batch of sperm. Your kids will get a healthier batch because you're
it's the whole nature versus nurture thing, you know, the whole genetic, what your ancestors pass on genetically. You know, it's like people don't understand that what we do in our life, you know, people want to say, oh, you're going to die anyway. But if you want to actually have some sort of legacy and pass something on, your traits are going to be passed on. So if you're going to be someone diabetic, you know, ridden with insulin resistance, your organs are not functioning, you're most likely going to procreate and put forth those ailments into your future kin. You know, that's a recipe for, you're bringing people in the world who are just naturally going to be resentful, you know, naturally in a poorer position to start life in.
Yeah, they'll be weaker. And that's it, isn't it? It's like you're weakening your own sperm, you're weakening your own DNA, and then you're mutating it, and then you pass it on to your other genes, and then it's like, oh my days. That's why a lot of times they always say like mother like daughter, like father like son. And even there's been a situation where I've seen a kid and they had certain issues. I'm like, I looked at the father, yep, they've had issues. I'm like, it's just been passed on, genetic. And I do believe a lot of times you can, mutate your genes and you can switch it up, and but before you know it, your kids are going to have things which you never had because you didn't take care of yourself. So
definitely.
Yeah.
And just to follow up on my man, definitely, just to follow up on my man, Triplet Dad +1, he said, I asked a general question, but because I want to convince others to live like me, no one else wants to put in the work. They just want my results. And that speaks on the point of why it matters when he says, yeah, there's a culture of a lack of discipline, a culture of laziness, and that mental part of it that wants to blame other people for your own failure or for your situation, it morphs into the physical laziness too. That's the mental laziness. Your body can only go as far as your mind can go, in my opinion. So that whole aura of blame is linked with laziness. So it's like, I think, I can do videos on fitness, I can do videos on martial arts, but at the back of my mind, I know regardless of how much I talk about this stuff, people are gonna watch it. Oh yeah, big up. But I know there's a lot of people that are just not gonna do anything anyway. So it really comes from within. I don't think you can really convince others to accept a lifestyle, as bad as it sounds, that is actually good for them. It's like trying to convince a smoker stop smoking. That they won't do that, or someone who drinks heavy to quit drinking. It has to come from within. And I think channels like mine and even channels like Why It Matters are those sort of channels that we want to try to kindle that flame within the viewer, get their mind off of the entertainment, of the effery, of the distractions, and kind of sit down and think for a minute. I think when we linked poor health with ED, for example, that is something that really should get a man thinking. Because it's like, oh, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. You want to speak about girls and dating but then when it comes to it, you're, this doesn't usually happen. You're it's messing you up in many ways. No,
that's it. And yeah, absolutely right. Unfortunately, you cannot convince anyone to have the same motivation that you have. As much as you get, some people get frustrated with, how is it that you can't seem to see what I see, or how is it you don't have the motivation that I do? And similar to what you're saying with smoking and just addiction, you can't convince somebody on someone else's behalf. They have to do it for themselves. And unfortunately, for some people, it happens usually in two ways. But the first way is if they have some sort of ailment which forces them to. So there's one way which almost life will force you to make a change because you've picked up a disease, so you have to make a change to your lifestyle. And I'm going to use a different example. Magic Johnson, he was out there cheating and sleeping with anything and anyone unprotected, and he caught HIV. And it wasn't until he caught HIV was when he forced to change his lifestyle. Unfortunately, some people have to have that wake-up call in a way which it forces them to change their lifestyle. Other people, it could just be, somebody laughing at them in the mirror, or someone's calling them a fat bastard, or someone saying something, and it gives them a little bit of soft, gentle reminder. It could be family members, and it stirs them up. Maybe if they look at somebody else, or they just look at themselves. But really, there's two ways. The most impactful way is when you're forced to do something, and that's usually because you've almost gone to a point of, I would say, not no return, but it's gone to that point where you're forcing yourself to make the change.
Right. And I just want to say, if there's any mods in the chat, please can you paste Why It Matters YouTube channel in the comments, please. Again, I really want his sub counts to raise from this live stream, because again, I think his channel is very important, especially pertaining to Black Brits. We need to really promote the Black British channels with Black British talking points, because it's vital. Again, this is no disrespect, of course, to the ADOS, who form a big part of this, but we come from a different nation with a different set of circumstances that we need to kind of deal with as well. So please do subscribe to Why It Matters channel. I'm going to put it in the video description and in the first chat, so please go ahead and do that. But staying on the topic of health, I want to now talk on mental health. And I just want to give a quick monologue on why I started the channel. Again, I mentioned earlier, for me personally, at that point in time, it was more, I guess, to some degree venting, but it was more to also vent in a kind of therapeutic manner, because at that point in time I was a bit isolated, kind of on my own as a quote unquote lone wolf, and I just needed a venting station, so that's pretty much the blueprint for this channel. But I think, it's obviously important for people in my situation. People in our situation will gravitate to the talking point, might have a similar perspective. And I think, like, do we really have enough channels where we can do that? I guess in the society, in the country, to air out our issues, or do you think that in itself is almost like an excuse? It's almost like we don't necessarily need that, or what we're doing here. Do you kind of take note of the importance for other people, other Black men in similar or the same situations? Because I think as well as health, there's a mental health issue, to be honest. And although I'm the type of guy that speaks about pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, not blaming any other person, at the same time, it seems that again, we speak about the alienation factor. We speak about being low in demographics, so we're not really seeing people that are kind of like us. You kind of need to see an example to kind of be it, if that makes sense. So it's like, do we have stations where we can kind of enhance the mental health of Black men in Britain, and do we need them? Whether that be more YouTube channels or something a bit more kind of official.
No, we definitely do need more spaces to talk about mental health, because funny enough, I mean, I when it comes to mental health, it still forms part of health in general, which is hugely important. Yeah, and funny enough, obviously you can talk more about this, being that you have your martial arts background. And one of the things I believe is most of it, when it comes to your training, your performance, a lot of it's down to your mental aspect. It's like boxers. You see a boxer and you're thinking, oh my days, he has the form. He for some reason it's not clicking, and it's that mental aspect. It's like teaching heart, and a lot of times it's down to your mental fortitude. So it's a huge part of training, just your whole lifestyle, your outlook. Because if your mind is beaten up, if your mind is completely not in it, then there's nothing else that really you can do, because your mind is not in a place where it needs to be. So no, 100%. We definitely do need to talk more about it, because if you look at, again, going back to the stats, and yeah, Fiona says it perfectly, Black men are like 9 times more likely to be sectioned in community than white guys. Mm-hmm. It's so much so that proportionally Black men are detained under the Mental Health Act. It's one of those things which doesn't get talked about often enough. Such is the pervasiveness of mental health issues. So much so that I have this theory. I think 95% of Black men, when they get to the age of 25, have had at least some type of what you could call mental breakdown, an episode. I'm telling you, I believe by the time of 25, most Black men, if not 95% of Black men, have had some sort of mental breakdown. It may be different, varying degrees, but I do believe that is the case. There's something within Black people that doesn't get talked about when it comes to mental health, but I do see it a lot, even with myself for certain things, and my uncles, and there seems to be a history there, which is just like, for us as British culture, things get swept in the rug. It's like a stiff upper lip. We just move on, but it's huge. So no, it's very important that we talk about mental health.
Okay, so then I ask this: do you think that, although you and me, we're kind of like the guys that we can't really blame anyone, we need to do for self and improve, but for the individual that was raised, I guess, from a single motherhood, so there's already the imbalance of parenthood, for this guy who gets thrown into the world, at 18, and is supposed to be a man that builds stuff, but he hasn't had that example, and he's gone through all sorts of kind of failures because he's never been led. Do you think that type of person has a quote unquote excuse in terms of feeling like, feeling kind of nihilistic, having that sort of mentality of, I've just been given a bad hand in life. Do you think that is a pass? Do you think that is valid?
I think I'd phrase it differently. I think it's just a case of it's not an excuse. It's one of these unfortunate things we have to say that everyone's dealt a different hand in life, and all of us have our responsibilities, regardless of what hand that we have, in order to make the best of it. So I like poker, and one of the things about poker, Texas Hold'em, is what you have to do is, even if you have a poor hand, one of the things you can do is bluff. And that's what a lot of times that we may have to do a little bit. We have to bluff, and we can still win the hand by bluffing. And if someone has a better hand, if they don't know it, because you're bluffing. So I think when it comes to things like this, it's not I won't call it an excuse. It is a situation that we have to address. It is a situation that is real, but it just means that we have to understand it to better understand how we can bear the responsibility and how we can overcome it in order to make sure that he can still get to his objectives, his aims that he's looking for in life. Because equally speaking, we could argue somebody who lives, in a very poor country has a much worse hand, and then you know what I mean. It's so life is not set up to be fair. It never has been. I think if you're thinking that life was set up to be fair, then you're just unfortunately misguided. Some people are born with better hands. Some people are born with less fortunate hands. But no, I think we all have to try and do the best that we can do, and so we can still support. I think the issue is supporting people as much as we can do to make sure that they can maximize what hand that they've been dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think, ultimately there is a sort of middle ground, but at the end of the day, it's like you need to take responsibility for your life and wherever you're at. You need to, unfortunately for us guys in general, no one is coming to give us a handout. No one really cares. You are kind of, you are very easily disposable, and it's like, when you talk about breakdowns, especially, I guess, with black men, it's like, walking down London, you're going to see a lot of, like, I guess, homeless and kind of almost crazy looking black guys. And I can imagine, what other groups are thinking, obviously won't ever offer any sort of help, and we're being honest, we're probably thinking the same. And it's like, there is a very visible minority without a certain level of support there,
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and I think that's what we're missing. We're missing that support mechanism. Before we had like community centers and things of that nature at all. I think we're just in this individualistic society. We're missing that support mechanism, which is why these spaces like these are very needed, I think, for us, because at the end of the day, we need spaces where we can just have a conversation about our issues and just come together. Sometimes people see it as just talking, but a lot of time it's therapeutic. So a lot of times just having that discussion, and sometimes with people who you don't even really know like that, can be therapeutic, because you can just get out things which you never thought you had inside of you. And we can all just come together to really just support, understand each other, listen to each other. And then we can, as men, we then offer solutions, and we can try and move forward from there. But no, I think we do need spaces. And in this individualistic world, even though we have social media, we still kind of feel more lonely than we ever have done. But these kind of spaces should hopefully try and, bridge a bit of the gap, just so that, you aren't alone. There are other people with the same sort of issues that you have, and similar sort of backgrounds, and that we're here to support. That's what I think this space is, really, really needed for.
Okay, so this was an awesome conversation, man. I'm happy to have had you. I just want to kind of conclude it now by asking the question. So, in your opinion, then, how can black men in the UK be motivated to succeed in a very general way? What are the kind of key things that you think black men need? We're keeping in mind everything we've discussed to generally have a higher success rate in this country.
I think it comes back to basically asking this question of yourself, and how do you see yourself, and where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? How do you see you represented in terms of your future? Where do you see your future? Because at the moment, our future as a group, collectively, we are pretty much, with the exception of one group, which is there's a reason why that is, pretty much at the bottom for most statistical categories. And When it's all said and done, we have to live with our lives in terms of what financial situation we're in, the housing situation. So my question to everyone else and how I would try and sort of motivate the troops is, what legacy do you want to leave for your kids? What legacy do you want to leave for yourself? How do you want to see yourself your name being left? Because one thing about men is we care about how our name is represented, particularly when it comes to our children, when it comes to our perception. We care about our name that way. So how do you want to see your name being left? And hopefully knowing where we are would lead people to think, you know what, I do want to better myself. I do want to make sure that, our community looks better. Because if every individual helps themselves, the community as a collective would raise their perception and their footprint. So that's how I kind of see things in terms of a general aspect. How do we get people to be motivated to succeed? I do think we need better role models. We haven't talked about this enough, but we do need better role models. So I think if we can promote better type of role models, that also will help the younger people to see, this is a better role model. This is something which we can ascertain that isn't the typical, stereotypical, celebrity. So we need better role.
I'm happy you spoke on that. Actually, we missed that out, and I hear you, but I think the answer to that, unfortunately, in my opinion, is that I kind of see it in this, I guess, Darwinistic kind of, I don't know, survival thing. It's like, do we really need, if we're talking about role models in like popular culture, like, entertainers and athletes, it's like how I live right now. I don't even watch TV. I don't really take note of anyone. And to be fair, I'm a grown man. I'm a man in my 30s. I've kind of been through the rungs of life. But even as a younger man, it's like I've been quite self-centered. When I, for example, compete in Taekwondo, I'm not looking, I haven't been watching anyone seeing their success. I've only been focusing on me. I hate watching other people play because I kind of have this pride to, let me perform. So it's like, do you not think that there needs to be an inner self-motivating force that, regardless of whether all the people in the limelight that we might have to look up to are crooked and ratchet, that we still need that inner light, that ability to do for self, be successful anyway, if that makes sense? Do you know what I mean?
No, it does. It does. And I go back and forth with this one. And where I'm at right now is that sounds good, but I don't think as a group we're really there yet to be able to say, I don't care about whether we are at a certain place. I'm going to have that inner motivation to succeed where no other Black person has succeeded. I think in terms of other groups, they have representation in areas which they can see. Where I think for us as a group, we need better representation, just so it gives people that added motivation as to I can achieve in a certain area. Unfortunately, for some odd reason, I think with us as a group of people, I think a lot of us are kind of sometimes scared to be the first one in certain areas. I know that's changing a lot. And if I sort of split the groups between like Africans and Caribbeans, I know Africans like to, they like to explore across the world. So wherever you see a Black person, they're likely to be an African of the African descent, particularly Nigerians. But in here, I think a lot of times we do just need a little bit more representation just to almost see that we've broke that ceiling. I know it sounds like a token gesture. It does. It really does. But I think that will help get people to thinking, I can do this if we see certain places certain people that look like us dotted around. Otherwise, I think it would just be a case of the self-fulfilling prophecy of the athlete, the rapper. That's where, it ends up when it comes to Black men, particularly.
Hey, true indeed, man. I think if I just answer the same question in a nutshell, I think everything that I'm trying to put out on my channel when it comes to, for example, minimalism, eating right, health, having goals, just real habit changes. I think for me, from my perspective, these are the things that will really put forth that change. When we focus on the individual, on ourselves, when each individual has that capacity maybe it's a bit idealistic, but when each person has that self improvement mindset where, you know, they have goals, they have quarterly, monthly, weekly goals. They're working out, that, you know, their mind is functioning at a certain level. They are efficient with their money. You know, they can delay gratification, that which pretty much lays into self-control.
Yeah.
You know, we're reading, we're enhancing our intellect, our skill set, learning new technology, new software. I think, and this is pretty much what I'm addicted to, you know, because I've just realized, even if, you know, I grew up in Peckham, you know, and most of my friends growing up Peckham in South London were mostly criminals, you know, and I was kind of almost involved in that lifestyle, but that's only by being, you know, in the environment, not because I'm particularly criminal minded, but it's like your friends are doing this stuff. Okay, I'm going to hang out with them.
Yeah.
So it's like what I try to display is that I come from that. I understand the issue, but here are the things that helped me, that weaned me away from that, you know, that gave me motivation and inspiration, you know. So that is pretty much my perspective. It's like self-improvement, individual. You have your goals, you have a vision, you're working towards that, and along the way you are, you know, incorporating better habits, better routines that are keeping you focused and not distracted, which, you know, like we pretty much summed up, relays into discipline, you know. So I think in a nutshell, it's the discipline that we need, that
it
will
is
keep us motivated.
It's the hardest thing as well, because again, if you could give people a pill to solve all their issues, they'll take it straight away. So,
but the thing is that
interesting.
Yes, definitely it's hard to change habits, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's repetition. You know, it's like, trust me, I do intermittent fasting. I eat typically like 4 hours in a day. And the hardest times to start are like the first, second, third days. But then it's like, once you get that wheel spinning, you get used to it, you adapt to it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are not aware of their innate ability as human beings to adapt to circumstances, you know, to actually put change. And a lot of that is because we're addicted. You know, we spoke about, you know, health, COVID, we're addicted to sugar, you know, it's just addiction, you know. But I kind of think that people, and this is the real motivating force to make videos, at least one person to get that message and to have the persistence to, you know, kind of lay that groundwork, you know.
Yeah, 100% agreed.
But hey, it's been an hour and 40, man. I really did appreciate this conversation. Again, everyone, please do subscribe to Why It Matters. You know, I really want to see this man grow. I want to work with you more in the future, man. Yeah, would you be up for
and
that?
also just want to say big up to KB Jones in the chat. He's another UK content creator, so I got to give him some love.
Jones.
So KB Jones the second, big up to you as well. So yeah, people subscribe to him as well. He's really.
I'm gonna check him out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've seen him in the chats, but yeah, I didn't know he was a content creator.
Yeah, man. We're here, man. We're here. We're not stopping, man. We're here. So.
When do you typically do your live streams? Like, is there a typical day or amount per week that you tend to aim to do?
So I'm trying to go on a weekly schedule of Tuesday and Thursday. It's usually around about 9:30 GMT. So I'm testing the waters a little bit. It was going to be Sundays as well, but I'm testing Tuesdays and Thursdays to see how it works.
Mm-hmm. Would you still bring us your like pre-recorded stuff too?
Yeah,
like the smaller, shorter videos.
I'll do shorter videos as well. We'll see how it all flows. But yeah, in terms of live streams, it'll be Tuesday, Thursdays. But yeah, that's the aim.
Perfect. But like I say, man, for you in particular, like I'm gonna support you as much as I can, but I really don't want you to lose hope, lose faith. You know, YouTube is a funny thing. It's like there's gonna be some stagnation, there's gonna be some slow growth, but you just need to keep pushing. You know, I know that sounds, you know, arduous, but you know, I just want you to be motivated to keep doing it. You know, the typical viewer doesn't know how, you know, all the work that we put into it, but you know, I really want to see you and others get that 1K, you know, and move on from there, you know.
No, absolutely, and you're right. A lot of times people see content creation and I think it's one thing, but when they get into it, it's a completely whole nother thing, and there's so many things you're worrying about, you're considering, and you're right. There's so much effort and time. You're like, oh, what? Sometimes the output or the result is not exactly what you want it to be, or how it doesn't grow exactly how fast you want it to do. You're like, oh, come on. But you're right. Like working out, like anything, is discipline and consistency. Discipline and consistency, and then once you hit the right mark, the right algorithms, the right topics, you connect with the audience, and then you're like, wow. I've seen certain content creators who stagnant, and then they've just astronomically grown in the last year, and it's just like, oh my days. So
exactly,
absolutely, discipline and consistency is the key. It's a very boring and very like obvious thing to say to people, but yeah, that is the foundation of every successful person. Those two things. Discipline and consistency in the right areas, of course, but yeah.
Right. And with that said, I want to draw this live stream to a halt, but discipline and consistency, guys. Henry, I salute you for the super chat, 199. Great conversation, guys. So I'm going to aim to do live streams on Sundays. I'll, of course, aim for every Sunday, as well as my usual content, being thrown here and there. But so, Stu, do keep your eyes peeled. 9 p.m. GMT, Self-Refinement Sundays, live streams, and hopefully trying to bring on different content creators like White Matters. Again, please subscribe to White Matters. I want to see this man grow. I really do appreciate his content. And thank you everyone in the chat who contributed, left your comments, super chatted, liked the video. And I hope you appreciate the stream. And I hope to see you more in other videos and other live streams. So again, White Matters, thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, man. Honestly, big up to yourself. I'm sorry I've seemed to have given you 3 dislikes, but might have been that SYSB.
The thing they don't know that the dislikes also count to interaction. So I appreciate the dislikes too. But until next time, peace, guys. Speak later, yeah?
Later.
Take care.